Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective, the first daily objective of this week. And this week is the first work week, the first business week of the year 2021, which is also the actual start of the new decade. You know how people said, oh, 2020, it's the new decade. Oh, look what a bad start we're off to. And I say, no, that was actually wrapping up last decade. Now everything is smooth sailing from here. What are we going to talk about? Just how wonderful things are going. So there's a vaccine. That's the good news. And by the way, it's not exactly what we're here to talk about, but I think it all relates. How quickly did the pharmaceutical companies become the bad guy? How quickly does everyone start running their mouth about how much profit they're making after a year of people begging them to for anyone to come up with something? But let's talk about the rolling out of the vaccine. You know, I'm reminded of a good friend of ours, Mr. Ben Shapiro. Looking forward to having him on. I remember one of the last times, maybe the last time he was talking to Dave Rubin, he was talking about how there's nothing that ties us together, right? Like we need a religion, I think is a big conservative talking point. And a lot of sort of former leftist people like Dave Rubin and other members of the so-called intellectual dark web, a very, very dead meme. More on that another day. They say, you know, we need something, right? We need some kind of shared memes, I guess. I'll use that word. You know, even if it's as simple as sports teams or something, a bowling league, something that ties the individual to his community. You know, and we can talk about that at length. I believe, obviously, capitalism brings one man in mutual sort of trading relationship with others more benevolently than anything else. But anyway, Ben Shapiro was saying, we need something to tie us together. And I remember Rubin saying, yeah, I mean, after Game of Thrones ends, like the Game of Thrones was in its final episodes, after Game of Thrones ends, like what else is there for us even to talk about? Kind of like we're breaking off into these fractured segments of society. And you have the leftists over here, you have the conservatives over there, you have you know, then women and blacks and Jews and these and those guys are all breaking into they're all in communities in various ways. And Shapiro was saying, you know, religion at least could tie us together. And others are saying, yes, religion, but also nationalism. And the conservatives are pretty cozy with that from what I've seen. So, but the good news is we don't need religion and we don't need nationalism because every person on earth has something in common right now. They don't want to get COVID. I mean, I'm still lumping us together because the sort of COVID deniers and anti-vaxxers are sort of in their own community. But most of us, I think, we can all come together. We all can't wait to give each other a big physical hug because we've all been vaccinated and COVID is a thing of the past. So there's something we all have in common. Do you like how I managed to turn this topic of the COVID rollout into something about, you know, how we all have something in common? It's always about finding ways that bring us together on this show. So let's talk to Nikos Sotirakopoulos, the guy who he's been keeping up with the news. He's got a lot to update us on. Nikos, how are we doing with this rollout? It must be going great now that we finally have a vaccine.
It's not going great. I don't want to start the year cursing, but we have a saying in Greece. It's so good, but it doesn't translate well. It basically translates something like, if you assign as your chef this part of your body, which is on your lower back, your dinner is going to be poop. So if you assign the vaccine rollout to the States, the results are exactly the results that we are seeing. Delays and a timeline which is far from anything optimistic. So, for example, for our group, so-called low risk, it's months and months, maybe some people say even towards the summer, but there are already delays, there are already problems, some doses that go to waste and all these things. But actually, I don't want to start from here. This is the low-hanging fruit. This is too easy to criticize, to make fun of. I want to go back to last January. So there was a very good article that I encourage people to check out in the New York magazine, and it's called "We Had the Vaccine the Whole Time." And it says the brilliant story of Moderna's vaccine, which was ready by January 13th. Now, to put this into perspective, January 13th, there was it was not even clear if the virus can transmit from person to person. and there was not a single verified case in the United States. Now, obviously, the fact that the vaccine was ready, even in a complete unregulated free market, doesn't mean that you're going to have it in the next day. However, the interesting thing is that we just had it all these months later, and the reason was not so much the issue of safety. So apparently it was quite early, it was clear to the producers and even to the regulators that it is safe. But we didn't know how effective it is. And to pass the test of the bureaucracy, it needs to be more than a percentage effective. So all these people who have died or now live under fear or under lockdown, they'll be happy to know that they've been protected from a vaccine, for example, that could only help them, let's say, 55%, whereas the bar is, let's say, 60%. So that's the one thing that really, really pisses me off. And the question is, should we blame the state and all that stuff? Reading the article, I see something very interesting, which explains why everything comes back to philosophy, which is you, Rucka's, let's say, running theme, and it's a very correct one. So the writer says, quote, "To be clear, I don't want to suggest that Moderna should have been allowed to roll out its vaccine in February or even in May, when interim results from its phase 1 trial demonstrated its basic safety." Quote within the quote. That would be like saying we put a man on the moon and then asking the very same day, what about going to Mars? Says Nicholas Christakis, who directs X thing about in Yale. So, end quote. So my question is this: who is we? Why is there a we in this discussion? Why not should I not take the responsibility for me or for people in my, no one knows my conditions, no one knows my family conditions, for example, and yet we consider it 100% normal that we use this we. So we find ourselves almost 10 months into lockdown. The situation is really dire, for example, in the United Kingdom. And yet it's completely normal that, yes, of course, we had the vaccine, but there was one article that said, oh, wouldn't it be fun if we could use it earlier? Oh, no, let's not go there. So that's the first thing that is really, really bugging me. Why have we reached a level of such low imagination about what could be possible and so low horizons that we see this and we say, yeah, okay, that's perfectly fine.
I was hoping that question was rhetorical, but I'll try to answer it. Like you said, like I say, philosophy is everywhere. It's inescapable. And until it's explicitly identified and called into question, people's premises are going to fester and grow like any virus. See, that's the real vaccine that we're missing. See? Opa, right? By the way, I want to hear that Greek phrase said in Greek. That's what the people want. And
Opa.
No. I mean, the thing about poop on the back. What was that?
Oh. Well, no, I can't. No,
all right. At the end, maybe at the end. How about at the end of the show, so we can tell them goodbye, and then you'll say it, so they don't.
Dude, it's dinner time in Greece. They don't.
All right. I'll let Razi argue with you about this later. But look, I mean, so when I was looking on Twitter, a viral tweet, I think it wasn't Washington Times or Examiner, but it was some other news thing saying like Pfizer is probably going to make like an 80% profit on this vaccine. And I saw one of the first tweets that I saw replying was actually sticking up for Pfizer, but sticking up with sort of the wrong premise, saying, well, good. I hope they should make that much money. Like this is good for us. I mean, technically everything the person was saying was right, but the point is not because it benefits us, they may keep their profit. That's a piece of the puzzle, to be sure. But it's theirs. They created it. They produced it. They have a right to every last penny that they produce in a free market, in as fairly as they can, fairly as they can in today's economic setup we have, our mixture of capitalism and state controls. But it's theirs, and I'm reminded of when Ayn Rand was on the Phil Donahue show, and one of the questions was sort of saying like these big companies, like oil companies, they have so much control over our lives. It's not fair. Something that was sort of the question, sort of the statement from the audience. And Ayn Rand's response was something like, if we rely on these companies so much, I don't think we're in any position to be, making demands of them. It's just so like, it's like a parent speaking to a child, right? Like a child wants something and he's saying it's not fair, and the parent is just saying, but that's reality. Like, so property rights are every bit a requirement. So they are how do I put this? Property rights can be violated because we have free will. We're able to violate them, but they are a requirement, just like food. It takes more steps to figure it out. So property rights are a fact of reality, if I could put it that way. Now, why is it? Now, your question was like, why is this taking so long, or why is it so difficult to kind of do this?
My main question is, why aren't we furious about that?
Because people don't act, like, people ultimately at the end of the day put their ethical beliefs before their own survival and happiness. If people wanted to be healthy and happy, bottom line is they would be telling these companies, do everything you can, and government, get off of their back. But they're just, well, okay, maybe I'm putting it wrong to say they put their ethical beliefs first, but their ethical beliefs have implications. So if I believe altruism is the moral ideal, and if I believe selfishness is always suspect, then what do I think of these companies? And what do I think of the ability of the private sector to provide us with this vaccine as fast as possible? I think, oh no, Mike Bloomberg, the billionaire, will buy as many of these as he can, and then he'll charge, $1 million per vaccine, so only the rich can buy it right away. And then, he'll lower it by $100 so that, he'll lower it by 100,000 so that the next bracket of income earners can buy it. I mean, even if all that's true, it's still the fastest, most efficient way in a free market to get it to as many people as possible. But in a benevolent, egoistic culture, if all people were like you and I, we would say, let the owners of this thing sell it to whoever wants to buy it for as much profit as they can right away. Maybe Jeff Bezos steps in and says, let me buy as many of these as you will sell me, and I'm about to get these to every doorstep in America and in the world. You can imagine how quickly it would go. And the first people, of course, who would get it would be his employees, so that he doesn't need to worry about it slowing down. So here, big bad Bezos, who treats his employees like slaves, would be inoculating them, if that's the word. He would be making them immune to this deadly virus quicker than anyone. So but the premise we have, egoism versus altruism, this is sort of the ultimate battle. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the rub is, as they say.
And yeah, very good points. And again, I'll focus on the lack of political imagination, particularly the left. The left are supposedly the radicals, the thinkers who imagine the impossible. So I was having a chat with a leftist friend, and I told him, what do you think would happen if we gave the vaccine to Amazon? He said, well, it would cost something like £80, and 40% of the population wouldn't be able to get it. The rest of us would get it within 10 weeks. So I thought, okay, even if this was the case, how much thought does it require that, not thought, because the guy is very clever, imagination that, wait, couldn't then me, for example, saying, okay, I'm going to buy for 8 poor people, for 10 poor people. I'm going to pay £800, whatever, 1 month's rent. Everyone has the vaccine in the next 3 months. And I'm sure I'm not the particularly large person. Many people will do the same. So they kind of get it, but they cannot make the step and think something that even anyone who is not brought up in this caricature universe where Amazon is bad and wants to exclude the poor would say, yeah, that makes complete sense. Here's another story, though, that should make people furious, not for the obvious reason. So we find out in the UK that, by the way, the UK is particularly hard hit because it also has the new strain that spreads faster. And the government is trying to get back retired nurses. But turns out that to sign up to give the vaccine to people, you have to go through many tests and you have to submit many certificates. One of the certificates is that you have gone through a program on how to detect early radicalization in the thought of people. And the other is something like an inclusion and diversity program. Now, what's even funnier than that is that the relevant minister said, yeah, this is a problem. So he assigned the committee to examine the process. So here is the country in a situation of the biggest high alert that it has ever been since the Second World War. And still we're going through these rhythms of the government. And here is why. I don't think it's even incompetence, and it's not malice. It's that the aim of the state is not to serve you. And the same happens with the bureaucracies of the state. Their aim is to reproduce themselves. Their aim is to do what is good for them. This has been understood by many conservatives, by Marxists. It has understood by many. Now we see it in front of us. So if you think about it, what is the NHS? The NHS is what the Marxist theorist Louis Althusser, that unfortunately even Marxists have forgotten, called ideological state apparatus, which means a bureaucracy of the state that, again, its number one aim is this social engineering and this reproduction of the ideology of the state. I'm speaking in Marxist terms because maybe some Marxists will get it, or someone who thinks that, oh, we are these capitalists who hate the poor, maybe they will get it. So what I would want to see is a mega mobilization saying every closed sports center, every gym, every pharmacy becomes a vaccination center. If you can do this simple thing, if you have any experience of this, show up. We're going to train you for 2 hours. I don't know how long it needs. Here is also some notes what to do if someone has an allergic shock. Here is a hotline on to what to do on that. Let's do it as quickly as possible. What I see is a lot of passion and a lot of urge on locking us up. And I see no one trying to think about these things, no one trying to think outside of the box. And you will say, well, Nikos, are you the cleverest one? How come no one else is thinking about it? That's the problem for me again. The problem is this lack of imagination. And this is not something that cannot be done.
I mean, if this vaccine had been developed a long time ago, let's say a month into the lockdown, I think you might see a lot more cooperation. Like, I hate to bring this up, like after 9/11, Americans and the world became very cooperative. People were kind of lining up to help and donate blood, and then just in various ways being very empathetic. And, that's sort like, I think if this vaccine had shown up a lot sooner, then people would have been sort of prepared to kind of do what's necessary. But, we had the summer of the lockdown / riots / lockdowns again / this, that, where it's unclear. Is there a spike? Is there no spike? It just, then the election, now Americans are split over the election results. It's just, there's so much division and frustration, and people are just so tired of so many things that like I don't know, there that spirit of cooperation, that kind of spirit of like, let's get things done and let's use our imagination and to be philosophical, the sort of premise behind that type of cooperation is like, this can be accomplished. We are volitional, we are efficacious. I can do this, you can do this. Let's make this happen. Kind of like when people form a company, So if we sort of treat this like we're running a business here, and the sort of product is vaccinating ourselves and others, I think it's the sort of attitude that we're lacking because of how the last 8-9 months have gone.
Yeah, and let's make very clear, we are not doing here the usual party line. If this were the free market. Even today, the state has spent trillions and trillions and trillions to keep us locked down, furloughed, to do these things, right? So it's not outside of the imagination that it would say, for example, I'm paying $1 trillion to Moderna to get the rights, and every capacity that I have is producing this 24/7. Why are we vaccinating 24/7? So United Kingdom approved its domestically produced vaccine, I think last Wednesday. The first vaccination took place today. What happened during these 7 days? Why is this not happening all the time? But one last story to understand what exactly is these bureaucracies and why they're not they don't operate for your best interest. So down the road, there's an open CrossFit park, which is the site almost of a football stadium. And the closest person in the CrossFit park is 20 meters away. But to go there and train, I have to enter a closed small room where there's a guy who might or might not wear a mask, depending on the day. And he gives me a pen, and I have to write my name and the details in the pen. And this is because some bureaucrats thought that A, this guy probably needs a job, and B, that he knows what is best for me. So And there are myriads of these kind of examples. Again, the state is not there for you, has not got your interest in its mind. And this is something that needs to be understood. And this is not to say we are anarchists. We're talking about the state as it is today and about its bureaucracies and how it has been forever. I had more horror stories from the state, but we're running out of time. So I'll let you to do the parting words and also to give us a bridge to the next event.
Yeah, I mean, look, anytime we talk about the government, it's like we're talking about a whole web of people, each one kind of more short-sighted than the next because each one has like their own career, which is in of itself not a bad thing that they're looking out for. But having a career in a lobby system is a very bad thing because it leads to all types of problems and you won't be happy. You don't see happy politicians. So it's like, okay, so like Stephanie in the chat room says more oldsters dead, meaning more old people dead equals savings to government. It is vile and evil. So I think Stephanie is implying that the government is sort of wanting old people to die so they save money.
I don't think
right, because I mean, if that was how the first of all, to speak of the government, I mean, we're talking about a large number of individuals with many competing interests. So many people consider old people to be their constituents, and they say, you know, we're not going to touch your Social Security, we're not going to touch your Medicare. So like they're, you know, that they're relying on these people voting for them. So if succeeding in government means killing old people, you would see a lot more of that type of thing. So I think it's always like tricky to. So I mean, and this might even tie to what you're saying just now, Nikos. Anytime we're talking about the government or the NHS or anything, we need to keep in mind we're talking about a very complex sort of series of actions. Just like when we're talking about the economy, we're talking about a lot of different things happening. So it's not like that the government has a big bad plan. It's just that like the government is involved in things it should not be. It should not be violating property rights. It should not be picking winners and losers. There's a lot of things that various governments should not do that they are doing. And this creates many incentives among businessmen that they otherwise wouldn't have, many disincentives that they otherwise wouldn't have, various distortions in the market. And psychologically, we could only begin to contemplate what it's doing to people psychologically when they cannot live by their judgment, predict cause and effect, and live on Earth as a rational being. So we're only scratching the surface of how much damage is done, especially factoring in wasted opportunities. So that's sort of my take on that. Now, yeah, speaking of wrapping it up, I do think you should tell us the Greek phrase. You already said it in English. What do you mean they're eating dinner? You already said it in English. The only people who would understand what you're saying are Greek. And no offense, they're the ones who came up with the phrase. You think they don't say it at the dinner table? Will you please give the audience what they want?
When we reach 3,000 followers, I'm gonna tell the phrase in perfect Greek with a Greek accent.
All right, count me in. I'm subscribing right now. So please subscribe. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Thank you all for watching. And coming up at 7 o'clock UK time, which is the bottom of this hour, 2 p.m. Eastern for you Americans.
In 35 minutes.
In 35 minutes from right now, we've got a show on this very channel, the Ayn Rand Center UK, called Firing on All Cylinders, Promoting Objectivism in 2021. That should be interesting. I bet some of you have opinions on that. And here's the great news. You can offer that opinion or feedback or questions in the super chat, and it's going to be matched by ARC UK member Vladi. He's going to match your donations, your super chats, all the way up to £100. So if you donate £10, he'll donate £10 as well, all the way up to 100. And then beyond that,
if you donate 150,
he donates 100, and you donated 150. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. And look, what else are you going to do with your money? You can't buy the vaccine yet. Just come on, hook us up. So yeah, that's
also the lineup.
The lineup, yeah. So we've got speakers: Craig Biddle, Shoshana Milgram, Lee Pearson, and you'll never guess this, Nikos Sotirakopoulos. So it's going to be good. I'm going to be watching. Are you? Come on by. Throw us some super chats and here's some optimism. That I can guarantee. There will be an optimistic spirit, which you need right now. You need it. You know, some things are needs. You need some optimism right now. See you guys at the bottom of this hour, and also see you back here tomorrow, same time on the Daily Objective on the Ayn Rand Center UK. Thank you all. Thank you, Nikos. And we will be back soon. Goodbye.